Greetings, lovers of mystery and horror. You know, sometimes you just want to give yourself a good scare, right? Today, we're diving into the world of the scariest stories that will make you tremble with fear. Get comfortable, pour yourself some tea or something stronger. These stories will chill you to the bone. And get ready, because 3 creepy stories await you. Stories that will make your blood run cold. They say these stories aren't just made up. They're whispered, behind closed doors, passed from one person to another, and every detail, every shadow, every rustle is further proof that reality is much scarier than any fiction. So, are you ready? Then let's turn off the lights, light some candles, just not the ones that attract spirits, you never know, and embark on a journey through the darkest corners of human fears. Imagine an abandoned house on the edge of town. A house that has seen joy and sorrow, heard children's laughter and cries of despair. A house that holds secrets and is in no hurry to part with the past. The windows, like eyes, stare at the world with empty hollows. The paint on the walls has peeled and become mouldy, as if the house is suffering from some incurable disease. The roof is leaky, and in rainy weather water streams down the attic like tears down cheeks. Locals avoid this house. They say that the ghosts of former residents live there, unable to find peace. Old people tell stories about strange sounds coming from the house at night. Creaking doors, footsteps in the attic, the quiet cry of a child. And so one day, a group of teenagers, eager for adventure, decided to sneak into the abandoned house. They wanted to prove to everyone that ghosts are just made up, that there's nothing scary about an old house. But they were wrong. As soon as the teenagers crossed the threshold of the house, the atmosphere around them changed. It became cold, as if an icy fog had enveloped them. A heavy smell of dampness and decay hung in the air. The friends went into the living room. The floor here was covered with broken furniture and pieces of plaster. A faded portrait of the family who once lived in this house hung on the wall. The eyes of the people in the portrait seemed to follow the teenagers' every move. Suddenly, one of the guys noticed something strange. In the depths of the room, in a dark corner, something stirred. He looked closely and realized with horror that it was a human figure. The figure was dressed in a long black dress, and a thick veil hid her face. She stood motionless like a statue, watching the teenagers. The guys froze in place, unable to move from fear. They realized that it wasn't a living person in front of them. Suddenly, the figure took a step forward. The floor creaked under her feet, and an icy wind swept through the room. The teenagers couldn't take it anymore and ran. They jumped out of the house and ran away as fast as they could, without looking back. They never returned to the abandoned house again. And the locals still tell this story, warning anyone who decides to visit the abandoned house on the edge of town. After all, some secrets are best left unsolved. In the old quarter, where narrow streets wind like a labyrinth, and houses still remember the whisper of gas lamps, lived a young woman named Anna. She was an artist. Her soul yearned for beauty, and her fingers skillfully transferred this beauty onto canvas. Anna had recently moved into this apartment at the very top of an old house. She was attracted by the atmosphere of antiquity, the high ceilings with stucco, the large windows that offered a view of the red tiled roofs. But soon Anna began to notice strange things. At night, she would wake up with the feeling of someone's heavy gaze. It seemed to her that someone invisible was in the room, watching her from the darkness. One night, Anna woke up because someone touched her hair. She sat up sharply in bed and saw him. A man, tall, thin, with a face as pale as chalk and eyes as black as night. He was wearing an old-fashioned black suit, and his hands were cold and clammy like a corpse's. Anna screamed in terror. The ghost leaned over her, and she felt his icy breath on her face. Then he slowly dissolved into the air, leaving behind only the smell of damp earth and fear. From then on, the ghost began to appear every night. He didn't harm Anna, but his presence was driving her crazy. She felt her strength fading with each passing day. Anna tried to find an explanation for what was happening. She studied the history of the house, asked old-timers, but no one could really tell her anything. One day, an old woman who lived next door advised Anna to consult a medium. She said that the ghost might be connected to some unfinished business and that the medium would help him find peace. The medium came to Anna's apartment at dusk. He lit candles, arranged them in a circle, and began the ritual. A thick fog filled the room. The air became heavy and still. Suddenly the walls began to shake and the dishes clinked in the cupboard. And then he appeared, the ghost. He looked even more real than before. His eyes burned with an unearthly fire and his voice sounded hollow and menacing. The medium began to talk to the ghost, trying to find out what he needed. It turned out that the ghost was the spirit of a young man who had been murdered in this apartment many years ago. He couldn't find peace until his killer was found. The medium helped the ghost tell his story. He learned the name of the murderer and where he had hidden the body. The next day, Anna went to the police. Thanks to the ghost's story, the crime was solved and the murderer was put behind bars. After that, the ghost stopped appearing. He found peace, and Anna could finally sleep peacefully at night. But she will never forget this story and the fear she had to endure. In a remote village, lost amidst dense forests and swamps, lived the Kuznetsov family. It was an old family name, its roots stretching back centuries. But a curse hung over the Kuznetsov family. No one remembered where it came from anymore, but everyone knew. Every generation of Kuznetsovs would be haunted by misfortune. Old-timers said that the ancestor of the Kuznetsovs had offended a witch, who cursed him and all his descendants. Since then, there hadn't been a single generation in the family that hadn't suffered misfortune. Some died young, some went mad, some became alcoholics. The current head of the family, Ivan Kuznetsov, didn't believe in curses. He loved his wife and sons and did everything to protect them from harm. One summer, Petya drowned in the river. Ivan was heartbroken. Maria couldn't bear the loss of her son and went mad. Ivan was left alone with his younger son, Vasya. He feared for him like never before. Ivan decided to fight the curse. He studied old books and questioned old-timers. Finally, he found what he was looking for. One book said that only the one who gives up what is most precious to them can lift the curse. Ivan realized that it was his son, Vasya. He took him to the city and left him at the church doors. Ivan returned home alone. The curse was lifted. Ivan lived for many more years, remembering his family and his sacrifice. Vasya grew up in the city and never knew about the curse. Whew. I hope you haven't completely frozen from terror yet. These stories, though just a figment of someone's imagination, remind us that the world is full of mysteries and secrets, and that sometimes it's better not to go where you shouldn't. If you enjoyed this thrill ride, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more exciting and terrifying stuff to come. In the meantime, sleep tight. And don't be afraid to look under the bed, or should you be? After all, fear is always near.